So Netflix is set to acquire Warner Brothers in one of the biggest corporate mergers for decades. The streaming giant will take over the movie studio that's worth $82 billion. The co-CEO of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, said, "Our mission has always been to entertain the world by combining Warner Bros.' incredible library of shows and movies, from timeless classics like Casablanca and Citizen Kane to modern favorites like Harry Potter and Friends, with our culture-defining titles like Stranger Things, K-pop Demon Hunters, and Squid Game. We'll be able to do that even better. Together, we can give audiences more of what they love and help define the next century of storytelling." But I think we're all very skeptical of that claim. Now, despite Netflix acting like this is a done deal, problems have arisen. Netflix has been hit with a consumer lawsuit seeking to block the online video giant's planned $72 billion acquisition of Warner Bros. Discovery Studio and streaming businesses. The proposed class action was filed on Monday by a subscriber to Warner Bros. Owned HBO Max, who said the proposed deal threatened to reduce competition in the US subscription video on demand markets. Some members of Congress have sharply questioned Netflix's proposal, which is expected to face significant US regulatory scrutiny under antitrust laws. Paramount has also announced that they are launching a hostile bid worth $108.4 billion. Paramount said on Monday that it was going straight to Warner Bros. Discovery shareholders with its cash offer for the entirety of the company, including its global networks segment, asking them to reject the deal with Netflix. But there's also a political element to this. US President Donald Trump has made clear he wants to be involved. President Donald Trump on Sunday said he would be involved in the decision over who ultimately buys WBD, setting off speculation about which buyer the president may favor, with the potential to influence the outcome through the Justice Department's antitrust powers. Paramount's David Ellison has long been seen as holding the antitrust edge, partly thanks to his father, Larry Ellison, the billionaire Oracle founder and Trump ally. That perception was reinforced after it emerged this week that the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is among the financial backers for Paramount's bids. So Trump's friend's son owns Paramount. I mean, what more is there to be said? But whoever wins, we lose. This is, of course, the furthering of the market being monopolized, less choice and less competition. Now, one could say, well, this is good for the consumer when it comes to streaming. I mean, how many different subscriptions are there? You sign up to Netflix and you get a library of certain films and TV, but not others. You then have to subscribe to Amazon Prime or Apple TV to watch a different show. I mean, how many times have you seen a particular show you want to watch? I mean, I'm watching Pluribus right now. If you don't know what it is or you haven't watched it, I recommend you watch it, right? And I had to get a Amazon Prime, Apple TV trial, which is going to run out very soon. I wanted to watch Severance. I had to subscribe to Apple TV just for that show. So that's what, £12 a month for Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Netflix. It's getting so expensive. Now, if streaming giants and production companies merge, one could say surely there's more media in one place, potentially. But it ignores wider issues. Capitalists hate capitalism. They hate free markets and they hate competition. This is one of the big contradictions of capitalism. It cannibalizes itself. It monopolizes. Now, back in 1999, Sean Parker started Napster. It was the first file-sharing website known as peer-to-peer. People were freely sharing media. Users could download music for free. Now, what is the goal of competition and markets? A better product for as cheap as possible, right? Well, Napster did the ultimate thing. Content which was free. Now, in a free market society, that's fair game. And at the time, there were no rules against this. But agencies and production companies obviously didn't like this. So to protect their profits, they all did what they could to shut it down and lobby governments to make this illegal. Napster would just change. One of the iterations you might know is LimeWire. I'm sure we've all heard of it. I'm probably not going to say any more than that. But this is what is known as the rise and fall and rise again of pirating. All the legislation in the world couldn't stop pirating. The only way to kill it off, offer a better product. And Netflix did just that. Starting off with, I think it's £5 a month. It was an extremely cheap and it was a decent streaming service for what it was. And people flocked to that instead of pirating the industry. And the industry, of course, fell. Look, people are happy to pay for things, by the way. It's not just about paying nothing. People are happy to pay a small fee and do it the sort of legitimate way. But what led to the rise of pirating is happening again. Netflix and other services have made their products more expensive, and people don't think it's worth anything anymore. So pirating has become popular again. And it's not like Netflix offers a superior product. The quality, well, it's pretty terrible.
I hook it up and I notice this looks really bad. It's not just that it is low resolution and low bit rate, it's just a bad looking stream. And I realized that there's a cheat code you could do on Netflix apparently where you Control-Shift-Alt-D. And when you hit Control-Shift-Alt-D, what you see is that you are actually getting a low bitrate 720p stream, even though you paid for 4K. So I'm just kind of curious here. I didn't really know anything about how this works, but like a part of my back of my head thought, I thought it was like a paranoid thought to have. Are they actually ruining the experience for somebody who's using a computer because they want you to use closed source platforms that give you more control? I'm like, there's no way they're that petty. No way. This must just be an old video that was recorded in low definition that they only have a low bitrate stream of, or maybe Netflix needs some more money, so they're overcharging people for the 4K ones, but sending the 720p ones. There's no way that this is actually intentional. So I decided, just out of curiosity, that I am going to try it on the smart TV. So I set up a separate network for the smart TV that can only connect to Netflix. My girlfriend is sitting there on the couch while I'm doing this and kind of giggling, and I'm actually sitting there setting up a network that will only allow my television to connect to Netflix. I connect my television to the internet after spending 10 minutes going through every single thing in the settings to turn off every single ad thing in it, which, by the way, on a $3,000 LG OLED should be opt-in, not opt-out for tracking. FULG for doing that. I noticed that the stream looks like this now. So before it looked like this, and now it looks like this. This is not just higher resolution. This is not just a setting in the television because I ensured that the settings for the inputs were matched. This is a night and day difference between these two streams.
So the choice is probably quite easy for a lot of people. Pirate films and TV and get it in 4K, not lossless quality, but indistinguishable quality. Or pay for a streaming service that literally decreases the quality. But what's the biggest danger of this merger? Physical media is becoming obsolete. This is film director and the Directors Guild of America, Christopher Nolan, speaking out against this.
Oppenheimer's been quite a ride for all of us. And now is the time we get to release our home version of the film that we've been working very hard on for months. I'm known for my love of theatrical and putting all our effort into that, but the truth is the way the film goes out in the home is equally important to me. And ever since really, The Dark Knight was one of the first films where we formatted the film specially for Blu-ray release because it was a new format at the time. And in the case of Oppenheimer, we put a lot of care and attention to the Blu-ray version, but also in particular the 4K UHD version. And in trying to translate the photography and sound that we formatted for the IMAX format on our 70mm releases, putting that into the digital realm for a version that you can buy and own at home and put on your shelf so no evil streaming service can come and steal it from you and take it down so that it's lost forever.
Cinema is dying, I worry. There's no better way of watching a film. Not only do we have the rise of streaming platforms, but those same platforms are producing movies. You can always tell when something's made by Netflix. The cinematography is fucking terrible. It's the same cardboard cutout actors. It's basically, was it Dwayne Johnson's always going to be. Look, I'm not trying to throw shade at him personally, but let's be honest. It's a Netflix produced film when he's in it. And they're sort of just made on the cheap for profit, and they just regurgitate so much crap and churn it out. Now, somehow bring this back to Margaret Thatcher. Yes, I found a way to bring this to Margaret Thatcher, because I think it's very individualistic to move away from the collective experience from the theatre to watching a huge blockbuster on your own phone, right? On your own. And it's another expression of how people are being atomized and are watching in isolation. It's the enshittification of cinema, shall we say. Helena, what do you make of this huge merger deal. Do you think it will go through?
I mean, if my understanding of the history of American antitrust post Reagan is going to continue in the way that it has done already, then I'll probably think the merger will go through. I think it should be blocked. I think that this is a blatant act of anti-competitive economics. I think it is essentially market manipulation to try and ensure that you can maximize the profit available by being able to curtail competition within that market. Because this is what's happened. We've always seen it. Richard Wolff does really good work in how monopolies form. If you do not have antitrust legislation available to prevent them, it's because essentially you can do what Netflix have done and what Uber has done and what loads of these people have loads of capital on hand to do, which is make a big loss at the start, trying to gain a captive market share, and then use your market share to be able to force out the competition, jack up the prices, reduce the quality, and make sure that people can only have access to your platform so that they don't have anywhere else to go. And then you can buy up your competition to be able to stop that from happening too. And the fact that when it comes to the Trump administration, the only alternative that we're getting to the anti-competitive practices of Netflix is the potential that it still gets sold to a competitor, thereby reducing the competition within that market. But that other competitor just happens to be somebody who is in really good graces with the Trump administration, is basically parody at this point. Basically parody in how the approach to market manipulation has been by the current presidency. Well, of course, given they've already used their presidency to manipulate other markets, that shouldn't be surprising to anyone, but I digress. And this is the issue. This is the issue, and I think we will see an increase in piracy again, because it doesn't matter whether or not it's all in one place when it comes to Netflix, or you are frustrated you have to pay for 1,000 different streaming services to get whichever one has had the exclusivity rights to certain things, or they're producing their own proprietary programming that's only available on their platform rather than broadly available from a production company and then sold to other distributors. That means that you probably will see more people likely to go, well, this is not convenient enough for me to want to pay to be able to have all of the platforms, so I will just refuse to pay at all, which was again the case before Netflix arrived onto the scene in the first place. I think that'll be more likely. Just like every single time this seems to happen with these with this platform capitalism, I come back to my usual answer to all of these things, which is we should have a state broadcast service that is available for everybody, that has kind of unilateral access to these things to be able to undercut the fact that if you do have anti-competitive practices, unless you're just hyper-regulating all of them, the end user doesn't get the best experience here. Whereas if we were just having people who engaging in the production of media, and these were going out to the open market, rather than being gate-kept behind the streaming services themselves by having a streaming service that everyone has access to via the state, that'll probably be a better idea as far as I'm concerned.
I did see someone say something quite funny. It's not state-owned, but someone said, yes, I think Netflix and all these other companies should all acquiesce and get together, and then we can all stream the same thing, and we're going to call it cable. And it's like reinventing the old thing. It's very interesting. Do you think I went too far when I invoked Thatcher, or do you think this is another example of neoliberalism? And I want to talk more about the cultural side. I mean, Christopher Nolan, he's a conservative in many ways. He's very conservative when it comes to film, and I like the fact that he's speaking out against streaming services. He's very conservative in the fact that you want to physically hold stuff. But he says, I would never watch a big sort of blockbuster film on a mobile phone. I wouldn't either. Do you think we can invoke neoliberalism on this and the sort of collective culture of going to the theatre or enjoying something, even though you're not speaking to anyone else, you're in the same room together, and now it's becoming atomized and you're watching maybe Oppenheimer on your tiny little phone?
I mean, as someone who's not really a big expert in these kind of things, I don't really watch many films, to say truth. Sorry if I'm going to offend all the films in chat. But like, when it comes to the atomization aspect. I mean, you can still use these streaming services to get everyone around in your house and watch things on your TV rather than it's not like you're being forced to watch it on your phone. And I think that that's more of a symptomatic of other things in society rather than the medium itself being bad. But what I think neoliberalism has done, and I think you're right to point out, is the enshittification of the actual product itself. There's a really great video actually by Pillar of Garbage talking about the economics behind slop content. It's really, really interesting. I highly recommend people go and give it a watch. But the long and short of it is that Netflix have realized that a lot of people will just have Netflix on in the background while they're doing something else. And they have tailor-made the things that they create as originals for Netflix for people who aren't quite paying attention. So things that you would usually have described kind of visually, or there was some kind of subtext that would make people understand the reality of what is going on. It's dumbed down the medium where it has to be conveyed by the actual text, what people are saying in the video or in the film, so that people who are playing a video game on one monitor with some kind of film in the other one know what's going on without having to look to the other screen. This really interesting thing is there was one very specific movie that topped the Netflix charts, and it was like a Netflix original slot movie that a load of people just had on in the background a lot of the time. And that's the kind of enshittification that I think that we're getting, where the changing in the way that we're scripting and creating these pieces of content is being optimized for something other than a very specific viewing experience, whether it's in the cinema or whether it's sitting down in your living room with your friends to watch it together as a group. Rather, it's just people just going content over and over and over again when they're sitting in their rooms. That's where the problem has started, and that's changing the way that these people script these movies, because the blockbusters are still happening. The high-level cinematic productions, those haven't really gone away, but they're having now to compete with a broader kind of slew, this inundation of slop that's taken over these platforms. And once you have a streaming platform where you want people to watch it, it's much cheaper for you to make your own content and boost that in your internal algorithm than it is to continue paying the rights to all these big blockbusters and get people watching your slop. It's just what Amazon do, having monopolized the online shopping ecosystem online. Rather than show the products that people have put on Amazon themselves, they will prioritize the Amazon product, like Amazon's basics product, at the top of the algorithm, so people buy from Amazon, which is better for their profits than if they're buying from somebody that's subcontracting through Amazon. The same is true of Spotify. Spotify have done this too, where they've monopolized the platform, although that's a little bit more competitive in music streaming. And rather than having to pay out for streams of other people's content, they have commissioned proprietary Spotify owned content and then prioritized it in the search algorithms, prioritized it in the playlists, so that they can pay out less to artists and keep it all in-house as well in the sake of profit. And it's hardly good music that Spotify is doing that with, but that's the material incentive behind these platforms. When you change the art from being done in the sake of art that then can make a profit on the other end, but being solely done to try and maximize profit margins, whether the art is good or not, well, that's where the problem comes in, I think.